What's up, Ego Hackers? Welcome to the show. This is CS Joseph on the CS Joseph podcast, and we have yet another Acolyte question to share with you folks. Yes, and today's question is a very interesting one. It is related to INTJs, and that is how to stop giving up on decisions as an INTJ. I will admit that a lot of the advice actually placed into this particular episode does also apply to INFJs and also NI inferiors. And I will give a little bit of fair warning. This episode might be a little bit more tailored towards INTJ men, and some of the resources that I'll be sharing will be benefiting them, but it also heavily applies to INTJ women as well. So it's for everyone. You just kind of have to be patient. Yes, there's a little bit of a slant, a male slant in this particular episode, but there's really not much I could do it because with the amount of time that we have available to do this episode, and as much as we're just trying to get to the point and use relevant examples, I think we'll be able to get there. So anyway, on to the show. So yeah, like one of the biggest problems that INTJs have, so don't forget folks, like from an interaction style perspective, they are direct, responding, and progression. Progression is what we would formerly call movement. So progression is all about the journey. INTJs with their ego of INTJ, their subconscious of ESFP, and their unconscious of ENTP. whenever you have whenever you have a type that has their ego, their subconscious, and their unconscious all sharing in the same trait from a type grid point of view, that's known as a triple XYZ thing. So like for example, they are triple progression, also known as triple movement, but also INTJs are triple pragmatic, which means they have the highest level of independence. They're the most independent people out of the 16 types, which I heartily enjoy as an ENTP. Especially, from the perspective of, let's say, a sexual relationship, because I am very independent. In fact, women in my life accuse me often of being too independent, like it triggers them with how independent I actually am. And I guess that would make sense why I'm, most suited for INTJ women and also ISFP women, because they are super mega independent on their own. And the INTJ woman is actually far more independent than I am. And it's funny, I have people in my life who complain about me being more independent or about being too independent. Yet I'm suited to be with people who are more independent than I am, which I like this. I like this idea. I think it's cool. Why not, right? But given that they are direct responding progression, they are triple progression, they're so focused on the journey in their life instead of the outcome, to a point. We'll talk about SID in a little bit and how that kind of gets in the way. But beyond that, they're also triple pragmatic, which means they're the highest level of independence. Because they're direct responding progression within their interaction style, these are interaction styles according to Dr. Linda Behrens. You can understand all that with previous seasons. I believe I talk about it in season 2. I think it's season 2 playlist here on the YouTube channel where I discuss interaction styles at length. Yeah, it's season 2. Check out the season 2 playlist, and that helps you kind of learn how to use the type grid for typing people. And the type grid is available right now at ucha.app, an interactive type grid. It's free, udja.app. Go to that website, ucha.app, and start using the type grid and get educated. Yeah, and you can also keep track of the people that you type. So why wouldn't you do that? I mean, it's a nice little free service that we make available for the Ego Hacker community. So get on that. But anyway, their particular interaction style, according to Dr. Linda Behrens, is known as chart the course, and we call it the finisher types. These types are all about finishing. They want to finish. They want to finish on top. From their perspective, the finish is everything. But because of the finishing, they have a really hard time starting things, and this is why INTJs, as an archetype of the 16 archetypes, according to Jungian analytical psychology, have the bad rap of procrastination. No one procrastinates more than an INTJ, and it's like they have this point of view where it's like, oh yeah, I can do this thing, because from their perspective, everything in life is like riding a bicycle. Everything. Literally everything to them is riding a bicycle, and this is because to INTJs, they're the jack of all trades, master of one. not the master, not the master of none, jack of all trades, master of one, which means they pick one or two, three skills throughout their life. They can master any skill, and that's ultimately the life purpose of an INTJ is the ability to master any skill. The problem is that they have to focus and hone that one particular skill, because if they start doing that to another skill, they'll lose that previous skill. It's not unlike the character Peter Petrelli, and I believe this is season 2 of Heroes, that came out in like 2010, a long time ago. It was created by Jeff Kring. It's a fantastic television show. I think it's available on Hulu right now. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. Peter Petrelli's an INFP. He's like the main character. He ends up having like these godlike superpowers because he's just able to absorb other people's superpowers and collect a huge collection of superpowers for himself, and he just became like unstoppable. But he actually loses his superpowers at one point in time during the show, permanently, because his dad takes them away. Because his dad can like suck away your superpowers and just keep them for himself, and then you don't have them anymore. He can like literally take them away. So that's what he does. But he ends up having to take an injection, and I know I'm spoiling this story, but whatever. I mean, it's really old. Who cares? He ends up taking an injection and regains a superpower, but this time it's the superpower. He has to touch another superhuman, basically, and is able to copy their ability, and he can only copy one ability at a time, basically. So that's what he ends up doing. He is able to copy the ability at one at a time, and I always think of this as like the INTJ superpower. They can just master really one ability at a time, right? Which is awesome. But it ends up leading to procrastination because they're like, hey, everything in life is like riding a bicycle. And they end up projecting that onto others. They actually think that that others can master things just as easily as they can, when that's entirely false. Like, that's completely and utterly false. But whatever. That's extroverted feeling trickster. It's also extroverted sensing inferior. It's introverted feeling child. They just think that everyone else can be like them and can master skills just like they can, and that's not true. It's not true. So because they have this perspective of, oh, all skills are like riding a bike, whatnot, then they just decide to like not really do anything, because it's like, I can do that, but will they actually be motivated to do it? Not necessarily. And then that's one issue that leads to procrastination. But here's the primary issue that leads to procrastination, and that is not knowing where to start. And that usually is the problem. People don't really, like, INTJs don't really know where to start. They're all so focused on the finish. They're also focused on the outcome instead of the journey, that they don't even know where to start. And this ends up becoming a huge, huge issue. And this is why I've noticed, like, for example, ENTPs, INTPs, and ENTJs, the fellow NTs, the three other NTs of the NT types, NTs being the intellectuals, end up being way more successful in life than any other time. Wow, it's kind of helps if I just like actually notice what's going on in the background. It's because the sun is peering through the window. Maybe if you could shut the curtain, that would help me out. Thanks. So my green screen is kind of out of control right now, but it is what it is. Who cares? We care about the episode more than about the visuals. Oh wait, INTJs don't do that. See, that's the thing about INTJs, folks. Like, they care so much about, like, the visual presentation and how they're coming off within the videos that they all suck eventually. Like, the only INTJ that can, like, actually be successful at YouTube is the one who's, like, not afraid. And, like, literally has no fear and no shame, basically. But INTJs have a really hard time getting over their fear and their shame, and that's also leads to procrastination. But again, most of the time it's not really knowing where to start. And that comes from this problem. It's called entitlement. FI child ends up becoming entitled to success. They become entitled to, they become so entitled to success that they don't actually start anything. That's the problem. They're like, oh yeah, I can do that. I know I'd be great at that. And because they already are imagining the reward in their mind, they don't actually do it. This is one of the reasons why INTJs end up thinking about sex more than actually having sex. It's so funny to me because I see a lot of CS verified INTJ people on the CS or on the Ego Hacker Discord. It happens all the time. If you want to get on the Ego Hacker Discord, go to our Linktree link in the description in the video. The link should be below. Or you can go to discord.gg/egohackers and then just get right into the server passive verification process. And then you're on the server, assign your roles, and then just start participating in the community. It's amazing. We got almost 1,200 people very active community, 24/7 active community, well moderated and maintained community, and it has special interest groups for people that want to focus on particular topics and things to discuss. And we are taking applications for people who want to start special interest groups and maybe even use those special interest groups to become creators themselves to continue the getting the word of Jungian analytical psychology and four sides dynamics out there to the rest of the world. You might want to check that out. But yeah, like INTJs, they get so entitled to success that they just think in their head, like even like from a sexual perspective, they get so entitled to being performing well sexually that they often just think about sex anyway. And again, this is why in the Discord I see all these INTJs talking about sex constantly, but deep down they're not having sex with anybody. They're sexualizing things, they're talking about it, they're doing surveys, gathering data, but they don't do anything about it because they're oftentimes afraid. They're afraid that their performance would be terrible. It's like the extroverted sensing inferior performance, and and then plus the FI child entitlement to success just ends up becoming an even bigger problem. So, like, that really actually just sucks, and it sucks for them. It really ends up being a problem. And this is why INTJs end up giving up. I mean, they're like the polar opposite of anti-hero Naruto. And Naruto's like, hey, you better, I have the guts to never give up. And that's just something that an anti-hero needs to do. That's something an anti-hero just needs to have. And anti-heroes actually end up doing this, especially in relationships. Like I got INTJ exes who can't let go of me to this day. And they don't want to let go of me because once introvert intuition hero has made its decision about who they actually want, they just can't let go. It's a little bit easier for an INFJ to let go because when they get their cognitive origin of like connectedness from like another new person, it helps them overwrite their mind. But the thing is that when it comes to the cognitive origin of reverence from the perspective, which is deep respect, and INTJ seeking deep respect for themselves out of life, and they want to be able to respect themselves in as much as respect other people. When they suffer a breakup, it's like that other person that broke up with them or that they broke up with doesn't respect them. But it's especially bad for people that break up with the INTJ because then it's like that person is saying, I don't revere you anymore. I don't have deep respect for you anymore. And so as a result of that, it gets lodged in their introverted sensing demon and they just can't let go of that person for literally the rest of their life. That phenomenon right there, for example, is one of the reasons why I tell men, you don't wife up women that have two or more sexual partners in their body count. You just don't do that. And one of the reasons why is like, for example, is because INTJs just can't let go. They just can't let go. INTJ women especially, they just can't let go, especially if someone broke up with them instead of them breaking up with the other person. They really just can't let go. Or if it was like muddy to the water where they claim, oh, I broke up with that person, but the other person's claiming, no, I actually broke up with them. And then it's going back and forth. And that's too is muddying the waters and that also contributes to them not being able to let go as hard as they try. They just can't. It's just lodged and imprinted permanently on their introverted sensing demon. So yeah. Anyway, it's a problem, and it really comes down to unrealistic expectations. The unrealistic expectations of success actually come from introverted sensing demon more so than NI hero. It's introverted sensing demon and the introverted feeling child combining together, and it's known as the demonic child. And the demonic child is something we haven't really discussed very much within the ego hacker community. The demonic child is basically when the demon function and the child function basically team up. It's kind of like an interesting form of cognitive looping, right? When the child function ends up looping along with the hero function, and they end up getting up to no good because there isn't a parent function to get in the way of that interaction. But what if the hero starts failing in life? What happens then? And the parent is still not around. Well, the child function will end up teaming up with the only other hero that is present within the 8 functions, which technically is the demon on the opposite side from a cognitive reflection side. The child function will basically, it's already used to being in the presence of the battleground of titans from a cognitive reflection point of view. And if you want to learn more about reflector functions, you need to become a journeyman member, csjoseph.life/members, become a journeyman member, okay? And then watch season 18, and then we have 4 episodes devoted to cognitive reflection inside of season 18. They will eventually be released to the public, but you'll have to probably wait 2 years to get to that point. So just be aware of that. But the demonic child is like when the child is already used to being in the battleground of titans and cognitive looping with the hero, but then the hero is not able to like solve a problem in life. The child ends up going to the demon function, the other titan in the battleground of titans, because it was already with one titan and it's comfortable being with a titan, but that titan had failed. The parent function is still absent. It's the absent parent within the mind because the parent function is underdeveloped. So it goes to the other titan, which is the demon. Okay, and then you have the demonic child as a result. Okay, so this ends up causing introverted sensing demon to have unrealistic expectations, where INTJs get this problem where they expect success with 100% certainty, or they won't even start. The point, like when it comes to learning a skill or performing in some way, shape, or form, unless they are able to get 100% success with whatever it is, whatever possible venture it is, with 100% certainty, they're not going to bother. And honestly, that's entirely entitled. That is very, very, very entitled. And basically that means INTJs are entitled to success. It's one of the biggest problems I have with INTJs is that they are entitled to success. And literally, it's a feigned outcome focus for a triple progression type. But that happens because of the demonic child. The demon function is the hero function of the ISFJ superego, right? The ISFJ demon within the four sides of the mind. Now, if the ISFJ side is being angelic, then what would happen is that introverted sensing, the INTJ needs to learn the lesson of the demon. The lesson of the demon, basically for introverted sensing demon, is they need just to put more effort. That's literally what that is. If you want to learn more about that, we have that as a premium lecture because I go through each of the demon functions, what people can do to partner up with their demon functions and transmute their demon into an angel function, basically. And there's an entire lecture series available to that, also in the Journeyman section as well, csjoseph.live/members, and you can log in at csjoseph.live/portal. But yeah. Again, it's a feigned outcome focus for a triple progression type. Okay, they're triple progression, but they're so fixated on certainty because they're introverted, because they have the demonic child set up, and then you have the introverted sensing demon basically expecting, because introverted sensing is the expectation function. The introverted sensing demon expects 100% certainty for success. So this is called as outcome dependence. And INTJs suffer with outcome dependence more than any of the types, with the exception of maybe the actual ISFJ archetype itself. And this is where we start getting into, superego on superego dyads, right? Superego on superego dyads. This is something that we haven't really discussed very much within the ego hacker community because we also been looking at the dyads from the perspective of deadly sins and living virtues. But there is another dyadic way to approach the 16 types, and that is looking at superego to ego relationships. And this is one of the ways that we are able to do that. Basically, it's an expansion upon the battleground of titans, right? Where outcome dependence, because the ISFJ superego is outcome based, the INTJ becomes entitled to that 100% certainty with anything that they set out to do because of the ISFJ superego being blatantly demonic. And this is what leads them to doing shortcuts. And they end up getting upset about failing because of the amount of shortcuts they end up taking. Now, there is actually a resource. It's mostly a resource for men. It's written by Caleb Jones. I'm not sure if that's actually his real name, but the book is The Unchained Man. Recently, a coaching client of mine gave me the book. I've been reading it. I've been hella enjoying it. But most particularly, Chapter 3 heavily discusses this topic of outcome dependence. And there's also another chapter devoted to just outcome dependence in the book. I've recommended like the manual by W. Anton to lust types, to ESTPs and INFJs to help them out. I mean, sometimes I would say like the rational male Tomasi to help INTJs out, but I have strong issues with the red pill as an incomplete praxeology that needs to be further developed and understood because it's completely blind of Jungian analytical psychology. But that being said, The Unchained Man from a neutral perspective I think is probably one of the best books that an INTJ man could ever read, and maybe even potentially an INTJ woman to a point. So I definitely do recommend this book. You guys should check it out. If you want to get a free audiobook, you want to get this audiobook for free, you can do that right now. Go to csjoseph.life/reading and get yourself a free Audible account, which will come with a free audio book. And you can start listening to this book immediately, right then and there. Just go ahead and help yourself. I think the links are at the very, very top. So yeah, that'll be pretty fantastic for you folks. So anyway, the point is that because of this problem, because of this, 100% expectation on certainty, they end up getting overconfident in themselves. They end up taking shortcuts. And the shortcuts, because they've taken shortcuts, they're putting in less effort, which means that they're actually increasing the likelihood that they fail, and they do end up failing. Because they're so obsessed with certainty, that obsession with certainty ends up leading them to fail, even though 3 of their 4 sides of their mind, they are triple progression. They're supposed to be walking the journey and focusing more on the journey than actually the outcome itself. Like, for example, there's a woman, an INTJ woman, for example, in my life, and also on the Discord server, and she is absolutely obsessed with the certainty of being with, like her one and only soulmate. That's one of the things about INTJs. They're so obsessed with the soulmate myth, which is chapter 1 of The Rational Male. I don't care if you're a man or a woman, you need to read that chapter because it's a myth. There's no such thing. And going out of your way to be with the perfect man who could do XYZ things, blah blah blah, like it's just not going to happen. It's entirely unrealistic. And INTJs end up becoming entirely unrealistic as a result. And it's really sad. It's really, really sad that this ends up happening. But they do it. And but anyway, because they get so focused on certainty, like ENTPs, INTPs, and ENTJs all end up statistically more successful than INTJs. Literally. Because INTJs are just in the grips of certainty when they're not supposed to be in the grip of certainty at all. They're supposed to be as laissez-faire as possible. And it's because of outcome dependency. Outcome dependency that is stemmed from the demonic child. Outcome dependency, which is basically an entitlement to success, an entitlement to the outcome when you have the demonic child. And the child ends up looping with the demon because the parent function is still not there, their responsibility isn't there. And honestly, if you think about it, it's entirely irrational behavior. It is irrational for INTJs to take so many shortcuts in life. But the thing is they do it constantly, all the while complaining about how everyone else around them is irrational. Wow. Hypocrites. So INTJs get stuck focusing on the outcome, real or imagined, that they end up never actually starting and never actually going in that direction because they're like, there's no guarantee that I'm going to get success. And it's funny because you have this literally creates an NI hero who is capable of taking all of the risk in the world and actually being successful with that risk. And then the INTJ becomes entirely risk averse. Like when it comes to INTJ women, for example, Matthew Hussey talks about this in his book, Get the Guy. And he's like, why aren't you INTJ girls like, and I'm paraphrasing because he doesn't know anything about Jungian analytical psychology, but he's like, so just project yourself into this question. Why are you INTJ women not actually initiating with men? Like, why not? I mean, let's be honest, your TE parent is aware that men are just oblivious entirely. And they've been further conditioned to be oblivious by the societal programming in their life. And you can learn all about societal programming from Chapter 3 of Caleb Jones' book, The Unchained Man, which I recommend. Anyway, the bottom line is that all of this leads to the INTJ to failure. And this is how an INTJ becomes a failure in life. Literally. So yeah, that continues to be a super major problem. But if you would like to learn one way that could actually help contribute to your success in the very near future, and I believe it will be available on Black Friday, we have our Ego Hacking by Text course that will be coming out very soon. The announcement should be made this week. You guys can pre-order it before Black Friday, and then it will be released to the public on Black Friday. I highly, highly recommend you get in on the pre-order because I believe you'll be getting half off. And it's just a one-time fee, and then you'll have access to it indefinitely. So you might want to check that out. But it's going to be Ego Hacking by Text, where we'll be teaching social engineering, how to social engineer people through text messaging and emails. And we're also going to be teaching you how to type people just by reading their text, which is pretty awesome. And that's what we're going to be making available in this course. So check it out. It's going to be coming out very soon. It's going to be called Ego Hacking by Text, and I hope to see you there at the course. So yeah. Anyway, so now the actual answer to the question, how to stop giving up on decisions as an INTJ. Well, basically, you have to get to a point where you're comfortable taking risk without any guarantee of certainty. That's basically it. You need to figure out where to start things, and the INTJ has to have the guts to never give up and continue to take risks. FI child has to keep caring about the project and the journey itself instead of any level of success. Do not concern yourself with levels of success. You should actually concern yourself with levels of failure. Outcome is ultimately the enemy, and this especially applies to INTJ men who are actually trying to do like approaching women or cold approach pickup or pickup artistry or whatever that crap is. I mean, yeah, like I'm a guy who's anti pickup artistry for SI user men, but I'm very pro pickup artistry for SE user men. And like honestly, you need to just realize that outcome is the enemy. Like especially your NI child, your NI hero can cognitive loop with your FI child, for example, INTJ men, and you can be so obsessed with the woman that you actually want that you end up feeling so bad when she ultimately rejects you, which is a serious problem. And then this outcome dependence that you have ends up causing you through your introverted sensing demon and ultimately the demonic child. It really ends up inhibiting you from being able to move forward in your life in any meaningful way, which it just sucks. So keep going. I don't know why this is not working. There we go. Maybe it is. Maybe the internet is down. Hopefully not, because like I'm literally filming here. So yeah, and this should give you the opportunity, INTJs, to start and just take risks. Stop being so risk averse. Don't be like as risk averse as like an ISFJ would, because ISFJs are like insanely risk averse because they have NI demon, and NI demon is all about not taking risks. Their virtue and vice is faith versus fear, but you're kind of acting like an ISFJ with faith versus fear and really giving into your fear. And that's the problem. That's why you fail. Your fear of failure is actually causing failure in your life, right? When you need to be okay with just taking risks. And out of all the 16 types, you have no excuse because you have anti-hero. You are the master of risk taking. So go take the risks. What's the worst that could happen? Who cares about what's the worst that could happen? Because the more failure you pile up and failing 1,000 times at doing something good, because eventually you'll become successful at doing something. This is why, like for example, I had an Olympic an Olympian and someone who won worlds recently, Serena, very fantastic INTJ athlete, and I taught her a very important concept. So shout out to her. She's a pretty awesome person, and I would like to thank her again for her review that she left for me. Great woman. And I basically was explaining to her, like, the reason why you're having a hard time being successful as an athlete is because you're comparing yourself to other people. And as I've said this to INTJs in the past, stop comparing yourself to other people. Just compare yourself to yourself. And if you do that and just work on being better than you were previously the day before, over time, you'll end up outpacing everybody else around you and being more successful than they are. But that basically requires you to be focused on the journey instead of the outcome. Be focused on the progression and not the outcome. As a result, you'll have anything you've ever wanted, as explained by Caleb Jones in his book, The Unchained Man. So that's literally a principle with a promise that it's basically a guarantee, INTJs, straight up. That's a guarantee. So go check that out, change your life accordingly, organize your life accordingly, and I promise you the success that you want and that you are looking for. So anyway, folks, thanks for watching and listening to this episode. I will see you guys on the next one and also on the Discord tonight.